Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Decipher You. Susie's here, but she's just got a bit of a neck ache, so she's off video today. Obviously, I'm Elizabeth Voss, editor-in-chief of Disobedient Media. Suzie Dawson is the amazing journalist, activist, and current leader of the Internet Party of New Zealand. And we're so glad to be with you once again, despite the very eventful week that we've had with everything that's gone on in regards to Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. So thank you, all of us, all of you, to everyone who has joined us once again, because we really do appreciate it. And as Suzie is just getting herself sorted, I'm going to read you the article that I published the other day on the vigil that we had to reconnect Julian. And I know that a lot of you did actually watch a great deal of that, so I thought maybe you'd appreciate like a bit of a recap on who we met and what they said and what their sentiments were about Julian Assange. So I will just share screen in a moment, and I will get started with that. So. If I can, because Zoom is often a little bit cranky with me about sharing screen. One second. One moment. I apologize for the delay. Just quitting a couple of things that could make sound interruptions by notifications. Okay, that should work. Okay, so I hope you can all see my screen. I know I have a lot of tabs open. I didn't have time to actually close them before we started up. So obviously the article is titled "Silencing Assange Sparks Historic 10-Hour Vigil to Reconnect Julian," and I included the wonderful compilation picture that a friend did, that one of our wonderful people behind the scenes, I believe it was Zaldivar, put this awesome image together of all of us. I love that they have Tim Black and H.A. Goodman together because they're actually real life friends. So I thought that was really awesome. Anyway, but the article reads, the Ecuadorian government's decision to silence Julian Assange by cutting off his internet access, phone communications, and ability to receive visitors represents a saddening turnabout by a country that has long protected the publisher's human and journalistic rights. The move took place at the behest of Ecuador's president, Lenin Moreno, who took office in May last year. Since that time, Moreno has continued to provide Assange with asylum in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, and his government conferred citizenship and diplomatic immunity on the arbitrarily confined journalist last December. So, and that was one point I definitely wanted to address in this article, was the fact that a lot of legacy media presents Moreno as somehow tepid towards Assange or less supportive, but his government has actually been very, very supportive of Assange if you look at the actions that they've taken towards him. And despite the media reporting a few months ago that Lenin Moreno was annoyed at Assange being in the embassy, that was a round of fake news, because he was actually annoyed at the situation, not at Assange. So, when news of the cutting communications emerged the other day, friends and supporters of Assange immediately leapt into action, with Kim.com and Suzie Dawson organizing an online vigil under the banner of Reconnect Julian. Meanwhile, supporters on the ground in London gathered in front of the embassy, live streaming as they stood in solidarity for hours, only meters from the confined WikiLeaks editor-in-chief. The event stretched to over 10 hours of continual live streaming. We were so honored to be joined by the most incredible guests imaginable all day long in an awe-inspiring show of solidarity for a political prisoner. Participants included a range of viewpoints from all across the political divide, and included in no particular order Kim.com, Suzie Dawson, This Writer, Cassandra Fairbanks, Ray McGovern, members of the Pirate Party, Emmy Butlin, and I so apologize, Emmy, if I mispronounced your last name, John Kiriakou, Ron Placone, H.A. Goodman, Caitlin Johnstone, Lee Camp, Tim Black, and Trevor Fitzgibbon. This author was utterly overwhelmed at the radiating kindness shown by every single person who contributed, whether as a guest or behind the scenes, creating visuals, as Zaldivar did, compiling questions, monitoring live chat, spreading the word on social media. I know so many of you did that, and any other show of support. the way in which Assange and WikiLeaks consistently bring out the best in people, participants and viewers alike, speaks to the absolute integrity at the heart of the organization. During the entirety of the stream, the strength, mutual respect, and love of truth was palpable. And I was telling Suzie earlier that the selfless kindness of the people that surround Assange and that kind of gravitate towards WikiLeaks just absolutely blows my mind. It's really, really powerful and moving. And the full 10-hour stream is available below in the article. And you are like, please, if you have a day where you're just going to be like home doing laundry, or if you're at work and you can have something in your earbuds in the back of your mind, I think it's a really great stream to just have on and listen to the perspectives of all these amazing people that joined us. So topics of discussion range from the reason that Ecuador had made the decision to cut off Julian Assange's communication to the importance of WikiLeaks in the field of journalism and in protecting the public from the harmful acts of their governments, and way beyond that as well. To accurately summarize the contributions of such a range of incredibly gifted human beings over 10 hours is impossible. Those who had met Julian Assange in person spoke of their impressions of him as incredibly intelligent, in good spirits, and unbowed in the face of powers seeking to oppress him. They also spoke of his selflessness in efforts to protect others, whether that be the Catalonian people, Chelsea Manning, Edward Snowden, or thousands of other unknown sources and journalists whose lives have been saved by the efforts of Assange and WikiLeaks. And that is so true. And I don't mean to be negative, but especially when you see an organization like The Intercept burn multiple sources, it just really shows you how important WikiLeaks' protection of its sources is. Suzie Dawson emphasized that no journalistic organization had ever gone to the lengths to protect sources than has WikiLeaks. Many of the insights gained from Dawson's recent masterpiece, being Julian Assange, were unexpectedly timely and relevant to the recent events, and provided an invaluable resource that viewers could use to help others understand the level of attacks that Assange and WikiLeaks regularly face. And that was something that both Kim.com and I mentioned a couple of times. When Kim.com expressed strongly that people that wanted to support Assange should go and speak to their family and friends and explain the situation, explain, the fake news, for lack of a better term, that has been used against him. And Suzie Dawson's article is perfect for giving people evidence of how narratives have been shaped to destroy the reputation of Assange and WikiLeaks, and to alter history, to remove facts that are not coherent with that narrative, to destroy them, like removing the history of helping Chelsea Manning. But before I rant too much about that, John Kiriakou added that the CIA and US intelligence agencies would be extremely happy at the news that Assange had been isolated. He went on to say that they most likely added pressure to Ecuador and Spain to punish Assange, as the United States intelligence community was tired of waiting to prosecute the WikiLeaks co-founder. Kiriakou referenced the likelihood that secret charges await Assange in the United States, specifying that such charges would likely be filed in the Eastern District Court of Virginia, which he said is known as the Espionage Court. Kiriakou explained that this was because no national security defendant had ever won a case there, and that this is because partially it's home of the Central Intelligence Agency. And he added that Assange couldn't possibly get a fair trial in the Eastern District of Virginia. Independent journalist Tim Black expressed his support for Assange and WikiLeaks and astutely observed, "This is not a eulogy, and Assange will be fighting like hell." He described the process of slowly finding truth tellers and truth-telling voices amongst corporate narratives, which then naturally translates into becoming a truth teller for others, helping the public see outside legacy media manipulation. His characterization echoed Ray McGovern's sentiments when he called WikiLeaks and Assange an example by which we should model our journalistic endeavors. And I thought it was really funny when he said that it's much harder to be a journalist than an intelligence analyst, because you have to use two sources for journalism and you only need one for being an analyst. So I thought that was a cool insight. I'm just checking chat really fast. And then Trevor Fitzgibbon also gave his insight on Assange, his sense of humor and sense of caring for and doing good in the world, praising Assange's courage as truly contagious. And meanwhile, Ron Placone pointed out that the vague nature of Ecuador's alleged agreement with Assange, wait a second, not to interfere. Oh yeah, the agreement with Assange not to interfere in his relationship with other states, characterizing the silence of Assange as punishing a journalist for doing journalistic work. He said that Assange is one of the biggest scapegoats right now. And Placone also mentioned that the harsh media treatment directed towards WikiLeaks supporters like Randy Credico, especially in comparison with the softball interviews given to oligarchs and warmongers. This was a topic also discussed by Ray McGovern, who described his experience of being shut out by legacy media and even well-known alternative news outlets and pundits, including Democracy Now! And Amy Goodman. And that was something I genuinely was really, really surprised to hear. I had no idea that Ray McGovern or VIPs and Veterans Intelligence Professionals for Sanity members like Bill Binney would be given the cold shoulder by an outlet, a news organization like Democracy Now! That was really, really shocking in a bad way for me. So the important takeaway from the Reconnect Julian event for all involved was the invaluable resource that WikiLeaks is for all independent anti-establishment journalists. While legacy press largely neglected coverage of the stream, the Reconnect Julian event nevertheless reached tens of millions of Twitter impressions organically over the course of the day. In effect, the event represented the success of independent media in becoming the replacement of legacy press coverage on the censorship of Assange. And that was something we saw definitely throughout the day. When The Guardian published an incorrect article stating that Assange's silence was in some respect related to Russia, we found, Kim.com was correct when he said that it was to do with Ecuador and its relationship to Spain. So, and also, the legacy press is famous for doing very, very badly ratings-wise across the board. So to have millions and millions of impressions despite censorship is absolutely amazing. And in that aspect, it was a resounding success. And obviously, we didn't get to see Assange's internet connection restored or him allowed to have visitors or phone access like we wanted, but it was a resounding success in terms of reach. And that was really good on, good public relations outreach for WikiLeaks at the very least. So based on the resounding success of Reconnect Julian in that way, it appears that the public considers pro-WikiLeaks anti-corporate voices as a more reliable source of information than legacy outlets. And I think that's very true. I think people really want an alternative because they know that the establishment media is corrupt and not trustworthy. So they want to find sources of truth that they can trust. And I think WikiLeaks itself as an organization is one of the very few that people should be able to trust 100%. This was epitomized early in the progress of Reconnect Julian. And this is what I was just describing off the cuff when Kim.com correctly surmised that the reason for Ecuador's decision to cut Assange's contact with the outside world likely stemmed from pressure by Spain in the wake of Assange's consistent advocacy for the right to self-determination of Catalonians. Meanwhile, The Guardian, as I mentioned, published a report that incorrectly framed the events in relation to Russia, and .com's suspicions were soon confirmed as correct by both WikiLeaks and the Ecuadorian government, though the two parties disagreed as to the agreement that was allegedly made by Assange, which limiting his speech. And as Ron Placone very astutely pointed out, that the alleged agreement sounded very, very vague. So you could kind of call any particular tweet that you wanted, you could kind of apply to that. And so I doubt that that Assange would have knowingly limited his own speech in that way, but it remains to be seen as to what that agreement really literally said or if it exists, et cetera, et cetera. It appears that the crux of the issue relates to a tweet posted by Assange in response to the arrest of Catalonian President Carles Puigdemont, and I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that correctly, I apologize, in Germany at the behest of Spain. He drew a factual comparison, and this is Assange that drew this comparison, between the recent events and the arrest of Louis Companys. And I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that correctly either. And obviously these were both presidents of Catalonia, with Companys being president in the 1940s. And Assange accurately noted that he was arrested by the Gestapo also at the request of Spain. So that historical comparison, as Kim.com said during the stream, was totally historically accurate. Assange also has been backing up. Assange has been a consistent pillar of support for the Catalonian people, with his most recent statements on the matter specifying that he is not for Catalonian independence specifically, but instead supports their right to self-determination as a people. And that's a really important distinction, that he's not lobbying on one side of a political divide or another. He's just saying that they should be able to decide for themselves what they do. And the question put to him was, and I believe this was in Italian press, they asked him, when you say that the deputy of El País libeled you, you are referring to his articles that are arguing that Russia is behind the Catalonian independence movement and your support for it. And Assange replied saying, yes, and not simply that. I am referring to the accuracy of my comments on the independence of Catalonia. I have supported Article 1 of the United Nations. There must be self-determination of peoples, not self-determination of every family or small town, but self-determination for a people. Catalans have their own language, culture, and so they are people. They have the right to self-determination. Whether they should be independent is an entirely different question. My own personal belief is that it would be better if the rest of Spain was nice to them and they were nice to the rest of Spain and they all lived happily together. But that isn't my decision to make. That is their decision to make. And Suzie also read a message from Christine Assange, Julian Assange's mother, who said, quote, "This is Julian Assange's generation's struggle. This event and the hashtag has been a roaring success." And that's the end of the quote. And Suzie related that Christine was very proud of the vigil and all of the participants, which we were all like seriously honored to hear. Lee Camp joined us as well and expressed his support for Reconnect Julian, directing praise for Assange and WikiLeaks, not only for directly influencing media through the publication of documents, but also crediting them with helping inspire the Arab Spring and Occupy Wall Street movements. Lee Camp said, "The ripples of what you have done," and you being Julian Assange, "have created an immense, and I don't think the ripples of what you have created are immense, and I don't think anyone's tried to calculate the impact you've had on the world, and that's why we need you to keep fighting for transparency and a world that's not owned by a tiny elite. You are an important part in it." And he meant this social change. That was part of Lee Camp's kind of address to Julian at the end of his segment with us. Caitlin Johnstone said during the stream, "To be stuck in that embassy and then cut off from the outside world must be devastating. I feel his personal pain, but I think this is really weird. Probably predictable that Ecuador would take issue with the things said about the Spanish government, but I hope this goes in reverse for them and that everyone tweets the tweet that they wanted him to take down," which is the one where he compared the arrest of the current Catalan president with the previous one that was arrested by the Gestapo. And then Caitlin continued after she said that she hopes that everybody tweets that tweet. She continued saying that she hopes that we realize that what they are doing, that we realize what they are doing to this man is just wrong. And she said she thanks anyone who is going out to bat for Julian because you are on the right side of history, and we will make sure that we remember those who stand up for him. She also referred to Assange as a monk of government transparency, which I thought was a fantastic and interesting image in light of the degree to which he had given up his life for the cause. And I've never heard that imagery used before, and I thought that was really interesting. But A.J. Goodman also spoke out in support of Assange and added that he had noticed throughout the day that a number of talking heads with large platforms had stayed silent in the face of Assange's being silenced, despite their social media reach. A.J. expressed his disgust at such cowardice in the face of human suffering, and he noted specifically that he was not going to name names, but that he was definitely keeping watch of these people. Emmy Butlin joined the panel, describing the courage and persistence of those who regularly express solidarity with Assange by standing watch on his behalf at the embassy for long hours every week for years. She spoke about witnessing policing at the embassy firsthand, as well as the tremendous support from the public, whose positivity she characterized as extremely encouraging and something that keeps her going. And I thought that was really fantastic when she basically said that the majority of people that were on the street did support Assange. And a lot of people, and she specifically, as I remember it, she said that a lot of people would walk up on the street and join them. So that was really cool. A sense of warmth, positivity, integrity, and hope was strongly felt throughout the event. That Assange inspires such positive interactions which rise far above political persuasion speaks to his being a truth teller. Often, the participants commented on the fact that we were bound by prizing truth above and beyond ideology, and that our support for Assange and WikiLeaks represented truth acting as our guiding star. And I know that's really something that I keep in mind as far as like why WikiLeaks is so primarily important to a lot of people. And that's because all they provide is true, real documents. They're not somebody who's peddling an opinion. So whether you are somebody who's on the left or right, if you value truth most of all, then you value WikiLeaks by default. But Cassandra Fairbanks informed the panelists that she had visited Assange last Thursday and that at the time he was in good spirits and as sharp-witted as ever. She characterized his intelligence as intimidating, saying that she was simply in awe to meet him. Both Emmy and Cassandra spoke of Assange presenting himself as he is. And I thought that was really interesting. They used that phrase. They both said almost the same thing. And I think that that's an incredible statement in contrast with the often two-faced figures that fill the legacy media sphere. And, you know, that's a very common thing for somebody to have this kind of amazing, good public face and then be revealed to be a complete asshole, you know, in the course of events. And so to have multiple people comment that Assange is exactly how he presents himself to the public is really also speaks to his integrity, I guess. But Ray McGovern, a veteran CIA analyst and prominent member of the Veterans Intelligence Professionals for Sanity, which goes by the acronym VIPS, joined the panel and spoke about his friendship with Julian Assange being initially sparked by WikiLeaks' publication of documents on Afghanistan. McGovern spoke of Assange and WikiLeaks providing a pattern by which we can model our journalistic efforts. Ray told us that his 5 hours on the streamed vigil were the most pleasant 5 hours I've spent in a long time, and I admire what you're doing. And it was really awesome that Ray actually spent 5 hours with us on the stream. That was the coolest 5 hours ever. But as Kim.com and others have noted, Ecuador's treatment of its own citizen, Julian Assange, at the behest of Lenin Moreno and under pressure from the Spanish government, also represents a clear breach of Article 16.2 of the Ecuadorian Constitution. And shortly after the ending of the live stream, this author received a request to appear on Sky News Australia to speak with Ross Cameron of Outsiders about the success of the Reconnect Julian live stream and the current situation that Julian Assange is facing. And it was a total, complete, utter honor to represent the collective effort of so many awesome people, and Ross Cameron was a pleasure to speak with. The interview remains the only establishment media coverage of the vigil at the time of this writing, and I want to really point out there that, you know, I meant the vigil. I mean, there are lots of legacy press outlets that have commented on Assange being silenced, but and if anybody in chat can point out to me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty much certain that Outsiders is one of the only legacy press, or establishment media, large cable channels that has covered the vigil itself. And considering the incredible people that were a part of that, I think that's very, very egregious that they would ignore it. And the fact that it went for 10 hours, that's a very long stream for that many awesome people. So it remains to be seen as to how long Ecuador will shut Assange off from the outside world via internet connection, phone calls, and visits. One thing is certain, and that is that those who support WikiLeaks and Assange will not stop fighting until his human and journalistic right to speech and press is restored. And by press, I meant that his journalistic, ability to publish and to speak. And until he is able to leave the Ecuadorian embassy in safety. As a final note, WikiLeaks encouraged those who wish to support Assange at this time to donate to WikiLeaks staff legal fund and, and this is for people that don't have the cash to donate, and publicly campaign for his freedom, including by politely correcting journalists and editors involved in misreportage. And if there are any significant or substantive errors in my reporting, I definitely encourage you to point it out. I always appreciate feedback, constructive feedback, even if it's not, 100% positive. Constructive criticism is very, very helpful in this type of endeavor. So thank you everyone for listening to that. And thank you so much to everybody who tuned in, because we had like 15,000 views on that stream in the first day. That was absolutely mind blowing. And I'm going to stop sharing screen for a moment as I just get us to the documents. I don't know if Suzie is back and just listening right now, or if she's with us or not. I know she had a few things to get sorted while I read this article.
I've been listening the entire time.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, so I don't know if you're ready to read with me or not, but, I haven't even checked chat this entire time. I better do that. I feel bad now. Oh, yeah. Hi, everyone. God, there are a lot of people with us. We have 57 people with us. Wow. Thank you, everyone. I didn't expect that many this evening. You guys are amazing. Thanks for sitting and listening to my article. Yeah, I mean, we just figured that it would be relevant because of everything that's happened to kind of have that update on the stream and whatever. But I know
I'm genuinely very concerned about what's happening with Julian, but
Yeah,
we'll also stick to the topic for now. The topic being like Decipher. So let's go ahead and move into analyzing.
definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, when did somebody asked when did the show start? It started about 25 minutes ago. And we just thought that it would give Suzie some time to get herself sorted. God, that was very, very loud. Yeah, so let me see what everyone's saying. Yeah, and we don't know if when Assange's internet connection will be returned, but even if that happens in the very near future, you know, his supporters are going to be fighting until he gets out of that embassy safely. So it's not just like, okay, he gets his internet access back and everything's fine. You know, people are still going to be fighting no matter what until he's safely actually free. But yeah, and RSFO said that Rafael Correa, the previous president of Ecuador, criticized Lenin for his decision, and I think that's a fair criticism. But I also don't want to demonize Lenin, because I do appreciate that he's still extending the support of Ecuador for Assange's asylum at this point, and that he conferred citizenship on Assange. I think those are really, really important steps that need to be noted. And I don't like going with the media line that, you know, Lenin is somehow anti-Assange. I think that's playing into a negative narrative. But I want to, you know, along with Kim.com and everybody else in the stream the other day, we wanted to encourage Ecuador to, you know, fully support Assange and, you know, not attack them.
Okay, the first document is incredibly interesting.
Awesome. Well, if you share screen, I will read through it with you. Awesome. I can indeed.
My Zoom menu is here. There it is.
So it says the title is Intern Wargamer Peers into, and then I've got our window in the way. It says Peers into Crystal Ball. And I've moved the display of us in Zoom so that I can read. And the subheading is Wargamers, look at what the world may be like in 15 years from now. Will the NSA be ready for it? And it looks like the first few bits are unclassified. And it says, as a cryptanalysis intern, I was recently presented with the opportunity to participate in the NSA Transformation 2.0 wargame. The purpose of the wargame is to test the effectiveness of the NSA's Transformation 2.0 concept of operations, ConOp, in future scenarios. Simulated in the year 2020, the game involved NSA personnel as well as many other intelligence community members, including FBI, CIA, NRO, NGA, Northcom, etc. And then I can't...
NRO is the National Reconnaissance Office.
I can't believe that was unclassified. After some of the stuff that we've seen that was top secret. That's interesting.
It's not a current operation.
Okay. Well, the war game was hosted by NSA CSS Corporate Planning. I mean, if I'm just...
It will be that it's been reported on in the press.
Okay, yeah. It's just, if I was them, I wouldn't want people knowing about, you know, the stuff I was using to plan or whatever, but, you know. So the war game was hosted by NSA CSS Corporate Planning, Requirements, and Performance in association with Toffler Associates. And we've seen that name before, and that's interesting.
Wow. Now that Toffler Associates is involved in war game planning.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting.
Next level.
Yeah, that's incredible. And it's really incredible seeing something from so long ago come back up again like that. That is extremely, extremely useful. Anyway, although the NSA often participates in planning activities, this war game was the first time that the NSA used scenario planning to test the Transformation 2.0 concept operations. The simulation involved 4 different worlds or global situations for the year 2020. Each world represented a different extreme for variables such as technology, economy, and terrorism in the future. Each of the 4 teams looked at a different world and provided predictive, operational, and gap analyses to the combatant commander or COCOM. The gap analysis showed that NSA and the intelligence community needed to do, what the intelligence community needed to do between now and 2020 in order to perform at their best operationally. And the two scenarios were created for each of the 4 worlds. My team's first scenario involved an aggressive nation that planned to invade a land of strategic importance to the United States. During the gap analysis, we determined that NSA and the entire intelligence community needed to successfully produce an integrated INT system, which refers to human, SIGINT, comment, IMINT, ELINT, and SENSINT, etc. And I don't know what most of those mean beyond maybe comment, but like, what is IMINT and ELINT?
Electronic intelligence. Human,
okay.
Human intelligence. Again, you know what?
Yeah.
Comment is communication.
Yeah, I guess that one. But what's SENSINT? What's that one?
Hang on, I'm just plugging a headset in because people are complaining I'm too low.
Oh, no problem. Well, I guess that can be any.
You all right?
Yeah, I've actually got a tiny bit of echo for a second, but
Is
regardless, sort of. I'm still hearing a tiny bit of my own voice once in a while, but it's totally fine. Basically, I was going to say that if anybody in chat wants to look up SENSINT, then that would be cool. It would be just, one of those things that would be a fun thing to look up for us. But some main...
I'm just stopping share for a second.
Okay.
Let's see if I can fix this for you. I'll mute myself and I'll let you continue reading the doc and then we'll do the analysis afterwards.
Okay, yeah, sorry. This is just so interesting. I usually do that, but this was so interesting. I was stopping and chatting in the middle of reading it. But so where were we at? They said that, okay, we're at this SIGINT, SENSINT, etc. Okay, so some main points included a need for increased data sharing across the intelligence community, SID and IAD integration, including continued growth in NSA's technology and a review of policy issues. The second scenario focused on how the intelligence community reacted to continuous terrorist attacks on United States soil. The gap analysis for this scenario focused on the NSA's policy and role in internal conflicts. That's interesting. Each team provided the COCOM with an intelligence plan for both of their scenarios. During the second day of the war games, we were asked for ideas and comments that we had not had a chance to mention the previous day. I noted that potential changes in cryptology were not addressed. None of the groups mentioned the state of cryptology in the year 2020 and how this state could affect the NSA's production of SIGINT. At the end of the 2 days, we established key takeaways from the 4 worlds to present to Deputy Director Bill Black. My takeaway was that the NSA needed to do a better job retaining its new hires. Highly technical backgrounds make new hires marketable to IT and contracting companies. The NSA needs to work on keeping the talent it has, in addition to obtaining new talent. The group takeaways focused on the need for cooperation across the intelligence community, integration of SID and IAD, and the many policy issues within the NSA. Participating in NSA Transformation 2.0 war game was a positive learning experience. I was given the opportunity to work with a group of talented individuals and make connections that have continued to develop even after the exercise was completed. Sorry, I'm just shifting in my chair. During this war game, interns were able to provide new ideas, skills, and experience to all of the discussions. I believe there was a consensus that input from a wide variety of people is beneficial for meetings of this nature. So that's the end of that. I think I'm going to actually take out my headphones because the only reason I'm having volume issues is because I put these in to reduce playback, but it's just, if I take them out, it'll just not be a problem. So 1 second. Okay, there we go. Okay, so what do you think about that, Suzie?
I think I want to have a lot closer look at Toffler Associates now that I know they're involved in war games.
Yeah, actually, I looked up, I researched them relatively extensively when I did the first article on our findings from the end of batch 3. And
but at that time, Toffler Associates was just weren't they just involved in one of the educational events for NSA?
Yes, but they're also involved in, I believe, and it's been
credit card. It was the credit card.
That was the
credit score. Like, yeah. It looked like it was a massive data mining operation.
Let me see. I think it has something to do with artificial intelligence as well, which is also being weaponized right now. We know that much. Let me just look this up really fast. And anything anybody wants to look up on that would be very, very appreciated too.
I don't know that we looked up Toffler Associates and EdwardSnowden.com. at the time. I don't think we did. I think we we're just looking on the web. I would go to edwardsnowden.com and type in Toffler Associates, and also wikileaks.org.
Yes. They are involved in AI. It's humanizing AI with Toffler Associates. From data-driven insights from data-driven decisions to insight-driven wisdom. And they have a photo of honeybees. I'm going to throw this link into chat. 1 second. And AI, I wrote an article with Disobedient Media specifically about the fact that AI is really, really dangerous. I mean, lots of people like Assange has told us that social media and AI is a very dangerous combination. And Caitlin Johnstone's written a fantastic article about the dangers of AI and social media. But recently it was revealed that Google is actively working with the military industrial complex and the military to weaponize AI specifically. So to see Toffler Associates involved in AI and the NSA to this extent is really, really interesting to me. But associates involved in AI and the sorry, I have to mute myself again. I refreshed the page because my chat had kind of frozen on my end.
I want to know what the other worlds were.
Definitely.
That they envisioned. Each world represented a different extreme for variables such as technology, economy, and terrorism. They have war games based on economic models.
Yeah, exactly. I guess if they had specified what the worlds were or specifically how they reacted to them, that would have been classified, which would still have been really interesting to read. But that may be, like you mentioned, one reason that it wasn't.
I found this very interesting, that they envisioned in 2020, not that there would be a direct threat to the homeland, but that a nation would plan to invade a partner of the US.
Or that was strategically important.
Yeah, that was
so,
strategically important.
But that's so interesting because it admits that the US considers itself an empire.
And that it considers itself invulnerable. So
well, I mean, obviously
it wasn't saying like in 15 years time there'll be a threat to American soil. They're saying in 15 years time there might be a country that, you know, we would quite like to own, effectively own, that's under military threat from someone else.
And I'm going to throw my old article about our first round of findings because I did go into some detail on Toffler, and the reason I'm bringing it up now is that I wrote that they were participating, like what we saw them participating in our first discussion of them was a future planning essay. So this is future planning. So yeah.
And so it was the essay contest.
Yes, and it was in partnership with the NSA and the Strategic Planning Office again. So
but it was also piped through an NGO. The NGO was the Global International Affairs, right?
Yeah. And so they also, in the article I wrote, as Toffler Associates describe their unique use of artificial intelligence. This is their own description of it. They say Toffler Associates is integrating a new evolution in AI in a way that may surprise you. The technology identified the Kentucky Derby superfecta with absolute accuracy. It predicted that President Trump would be the Time Magazine Person of the Year, and then forecast his 100-day approval rating perfectly weeks before he took office. Toffler Associates just specified that we see results of leveraging biological thinking all around us in nature. In fact, as the term implies, hive mind has its root in bee studies. So with, and then I talked about Alvin Toffler, who founded Toffler Associates, but basically you can see how they're using artificial intelligence to do their future planning stuff. So,
and the guy that founded them was on the board of the credit score company, right?
Yes. And
which also used AI and had access to massive data sets of millions of people.
And he was the author of a book called Future Shock, in which he coined the phrase information overload. And he himself was also a future planner. So, and he was the one who just defined these different forms of power, and money was one of them. But he classified knowledge as the most important form of power. So Very interesting. Because remember how that was the guy who defined money as basically something you could encourage or punish people with?
Yes.
That was that guy. So it's interesting to see that come up again.
Very, very interesting.
Very, very interesting. Yeah.
Do you want to go put Toffler Associates into edwardsnowden.com and WikiLeaks?
Definitely, absolutely.
Cool.
I think this is an amazing finding. I'm really happy to see this come up. Because it's even though it didn't tell us what those worlds were, it's filling in the gaps again. And that's seriously the value of what we're doing in Decipher You, is it's not just the information in each document, but it's the contextual understanding we get as we go through. So stuff like this will come up and it's completely relevant because of what we've already researched. So
okay, the second one was terrorist attacks rather than an invasion, and it was on US soil.
okay, so I see a few documents. If somebody else that's in chat can also do this, if you can look up Toffler Associates in both the Edward Snowden, in both edwardsnowden.com and wikileaks.org, that would be fantastic. Because it looks like there are enough documents that are coming up here that I won't have time to look through all of them as we continue. But there are definitely a number of them, and I'll have to look through these later. So if you guys do that and you see anything that jumps out at you as important, please yell about it in chat, and we'll try to see that and respond to it. The first thing I'm seeing is called EP3E Collision Cryptologic Damage Assessment and Incident Review Final Report. Huh, weird. It's not letting me Control F for Toffler Associates, but I will link this into chat and see if anybody can scroll through it and see anything relevant. I know, was it Shelley last time that was awesomely researching for us the entire time in the last stream?
Yeah, she's amazing. She's from Aussie.
Here. If you're here, Shelley, we love you. We're asking you please to research with us, but if not, that's totally fine.
So the stuff about competition in the commercial space for tech stuff that have decent amounts of commercial experience, which NSA would also be considered commercial experience, but this is very much exactly what happened in the IT market. There's massive competition and large amounts of money, but I suspect it was always the case. So I don't think that they're predicting anything rather than just stating a fact about the industry.
Interesting. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think Toffler is the most interesting factor in this document. I mean, when you think about war games, you certainly wouldn't think that about Toffler Associates. Like war games, you think about like people are out on an aircraft carrier and like, you know, in the middle of the ocean somewhere or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this teaches us that NSA has war games of their own.
Yeah, that they collaborate with other groups with.
See, I guess maybe it's not entirely comprehensive. They have Northcom there, but I don't see like all of the military, you know, it's not like Marines, Air Force, blah, 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 war games. It
Yeah.
does seem very much like IT focused.
Yeah, and it's definitely a theme that you see across the board with, other tech groups participating both in the kind of conjunction between the military and tech, but also with just AI and the development of that as a tool for them. So,
yeah, I wish we had more information about the other worlds and the other concepts. That would be really, really interesting to know. Being that we are now so close to 2020, it'd be very interesting to know what they thought.
Well, it'll be interesting to me to see what they think about 2030 or 2040. Yeah.
I think we make a note of this purely on the basis of the Toffler Association.
Yeah,
Which we do right now, because I think that's strong enough to be significant.
absolutely.
Other than that, I don't see much there.
Yeah. No, I think, well, if I write about that in a long form piece, I would write about it in the context of the previous article on AI, and then in the context of the militarization of AI. But they are specifically, it looks like using it for future planning. Like that's a huge thing for them, but still important. Avalon says that they see some results on WikiLeaks with Toffler.
I would love to read those.
So yeah, Avalon, if you can link those, I think the chat seems to not be cutting off the links or adding weird stuff so that the links aren't clickable. So Fly, if you can, if somebody can throw Avalon a wrench so they can add links, that would be great. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, if there's thousands of them, obviously you don't need, I'm not asking you to put thousands of links into the chat, but if you see anything that stands out to you, definitely. And I will also go, when I'm looking back at this, I will definitely go through and research this as well, both on WikiLeaks and edwardsnowden.com, for sure.
I would be interested to know whether this Toffler guy was ex-Intel that, then started his own company and contracted back to the agencies, or whether he is an academic contracting to the agencies.
Yeah, that is an interesting point, an interesting question. For sure.
It seemed like the latter when we first studied him. It seemed that it was an academic thing.
Yeah.
Because he was with was it University of California or something like that, San Diego, one of them.
Yeah, I believe so. And I believe I watched a YouTube video of either him or somebody from Toffler giving a speech, and he looked very, very military. And if I find that video, I can link it. But it was pretty clear to me that was what the guy was about.
The other thing I noticed, there was a passing reference to William Black. And the name rang a bell for me. Was then Deputy Director of NSA.
Yeah, Fly, if you can throw the Etherpad link in there again for Avalon so they can put the links in there. I know you put it in before, but I don't know if they know to scroll up. No offense, Avalon. I'm just trying, to be helpful. So yeah, Avalon, if you're listening now, you can see the Etherpad in the chat. So click that and you can paste all your links there. Awesome. Suzie, if you're speaking, I can't hear you. I don't know if you're just thinking or something, but.
No, I'm researching Bill Black and trying to work out why it's familiar to me.
Oh, cool.
There we go. William B. Black Jr., born 1936, former Deputy Director of NSA. Oh, shit.
What now?
Wonderful. Like joined NSA as an operational linguist analyst after 3 years in the army, blah, 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 blah. Became assistant vice president, director of information operations and the advanced technologies and solutions group of the Science Applications International Corporation, led information operations research and worked with the IO Technology Center to establish an institute for the analysis of complex systems to develop advanced techniques for the analysis of networks and critical infrastructure. So he has a science and IT background. Returned to NSA in 2000 to become deputy director. Since 2002, he was overseeing Trailblazer.
Interesting.
No, it gets more interesting. In 2002, the main contract for Trailblazer, worth $1.2 billion, was awarded to none other than his former employer, Science Applications International Corporation. 3 years later, Hayden testified to the Senate that Trailblazer was several $100 million over budget and years behind schedule.
Wow, that's incredible.
Despite that, Black became acting director of the NSA until he was replaced by Keith Alexander.
Wow.
So the guy directly oversees a program whose $1.2 billion contract is awarded to the company that he just left prior to coming to NSA, which is then hundreds of millions of dollars over budget and years behind schedule. And as a result, he is promoted to director.
Wow. That's incredible.
I know somebody who'll be having a big laugh at that because it is so typical.
Yeah.
It is so completely typical of how these guys are all in bed with each other, how they fall. What do they say? They fall upwards.
Yep, exactly. And Caitlin threw out a really great tweet today about that there's charity for the corporations and the rich, but there's and bailouts for them and all of that, and then there's capitalism and nothing for the poor. So revolving doors also go along with that for sure. Just checking in with chat. So yeah, the Etherpad looks like it's working.
I'm just sending a tweet about that because it's priceless.
Yeah. Huh. So II Captain, who I remember from the stream of the vigil, you asked some really awesome questions, which I asked a few of our panelists, but they said just now, just catching up, surprised you're talking about, surprised that you're talking about militarizing artificial intelligence, and Quinn Michaels' research hasn't come up. Hope it's not off topic, but he has some very intriguing info on the subject. And I've never heard of Quinn Michaels. So that's just my ignorance. I'll look that up later, and that does help because I always love finding new sources of awesome information. And yeah, I think the militarization of AI is really, really important. So definitely something to look into for sure. I'm literally going to look up Quinn Michaels right now. I see he's a software engineer, web developer type of guy. So that is good to know, and I will keep that in mind as I research. When I wrote an article on the militarization of AI, I was focused mostly on Google, Eric Schmidt, Amazon, Jeff Bezos, and their implementation also as well of like Amazon Go stores and the influence that would have on employment, et cetera, et cetera. So sort of a side-by-side issue with AI. Okay. AI Captain says, yes, definitely. Some of the AI systems are called Tyler and Lucy. Can't remember the other. Interesting. That's really good to know. I'd never heard of that. I know that the one that I was reading about as far as the use of AI to analyze drone footage in combat and war situations was all put under the banner of Project Maven. And that was specifically where Google was collaborating with the military to use their AI skills to develop something. Suzie, it looks like, did you delete that tweet? It says you deleted it. Okay, I see the new one. Awesome, retweeting. Yeah, a couple of times people will ask me like, what happened to your tweet? And usually it's just that I forgot to put the hashtag in or something, so I deleted and retweeted a new one. But Suzie, where are you off to?
I'm here. I'm on Twitter. Okay, back to the docs. I don't know why this shocks me, like after everything I've read and studied, but
which part of it shocks you?
I'm shocked that he can so blazingly like have a conflict of interest, like that he can, such a massive contract can be awarded that it can be a total flop in terms of delivery, like to not to deliver years, be years behind schedule, hundreds of millions over budget. Have the Senate be aware of that because they've testified. It's in Senate testimony. It's not even something the NSA has been able to cover up. I mean, it's on fucking Wikipedia, right? It's like in the historical record. And what happens? He gets promoted.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, in what business would that be okay other than the spy business?
The banks.
Yeah, well, you know what? I think they're one and the same, to be honest with you.
Probably.
But moving along, let's go to the next
Federal
one.
Reserve, all of that mess, that tumor that like is eating away at society in general. So
I'll just show you something else that came up recently that I haven't got a chance to tweet about yet. But remember how we discovered NSA were based in had staff in Qatar?
Yes, I remember that.
And
yeah.
they also have them in Saudi Arabia. But
Yeah, I think I was with you when
I'll be right back. Hold on.
Yeah, not a problem. I'm actually going to stop video 1 second while I go shut my door because I've got my door open to the outside and cold air is coming through. So I'm going to go close that real fast. Okay. And I'm back. So well, and some dude says if you believe capitalism exists, you're a socialist. And I know that's off topic, but I think the thing is, and I think Caitlin put out an amazing tweet this morning that I'm gonna have to like read to you guys because it really you can't like put it all on one system because neither system is in operation. It's either here I'll just read what Caitlin had to say because it just really puts all of that to bed in my mind. But she wrote, and I'm going to throw it in chat and everything. I know it's off topic, but I don't care. She said, socialism for the rich, capitalism for the poor, privacy for the powerful, surveillance for the powerless, charity for wealthy establishment lackeys, rugged individualism for everyone else. And she was quoting, she was saying that in response to a tweet by Axios, which said, a GoFundMe for Andrew McCabe's legal bills surpassed $400,000 within 20 hours. The goal was initially set at 150,000. I'm even going to share a screen so you guys can see that. So the reason that I think that's important is because it shows that, you know, you don't have one system in capitalism or in socialism. You don't, the rich and the elite, even in communist China, the elite of the party benefited and the people at the bottom suffered. And you have that now in quote unquote capitalist America and in capitalist other countries. And it's just evil. And that's the plutocracy that we actually live in. So that's the end of my rant, but that's the reality in my mind. It's not like one system is good and the other is bad. Corruption universally is always bad. So now that I've pissed maybe half of everybody off, I will let Suzie guide us back to the documents or something. Yeah, RSFO Nat sums it up. Yeah, Caitlin is like the queen of like summing something up. Like she just gets to the heart of an issue and just cuts it to pieces, and really, really good. Like if somebody can be gifted at Twitter, she's gifted at Twitter. I think the only other person that was gifted like that was that I've seen was Smithy. He was really good at cutting to the heart of things in a tweet. So, and I don't have to agree with every single thing Caitlin says, but she gets the core of things very, very well. So.
Okay, I think the next document's classic as well, just from the headline. I think it's probably more amusing than useful, but we'll see. Here we go.
Awesome. Stress doesn't live here. Is that the one? This reminds me of that one we did before again. Like this is all this evening stuff is all playing back to the stuff we've already read in some way. Anyway, it says the subtitle is NSAers working as integrees at the UK's government communications headquarters find the lifestyle jolly good. Unclassified. Did you know what jobs advertised in Cheltenham, England have more applicants per position than any other PCS location? It's not hard to understand why. You live and work in Cotswolds, an officially designated area of outstanding natural beauty, in a country steeped in history and tradition with whom we share a common language, well, mostly, and sets of values. Many Americans who choose to live in town for any number of reasons. Many Americans choose to live in town for any number of reasons. The townies benefit from the convenience of being close to work, as well as living in a vibrant city with theatre, arts festivals, and shops. Despite its modernity, making your way around Cheltenham can have the feel of stepping back in time as you pass stately old homes and the not uncommon lady cyclist in her skirt and loafers, pedaling on an old-style bike with a basket on front. But we longed for a different experience. We wanted to live in a small village in the countryside. Our village of Temple Gitting, I don't know how you are supposed to pronounce that, is only 17 miles from Cheltenham and the townies, but a world away in other respects. It is nearly impossible to hold on to any feeling of stress as we drive to and from work each day along winding country lanes. Vistas spanning miles of green fields and rolling hills dotted with sheep are open before us. Rabbits and pheasants play in among the hedgerows, and we travel through other villages where the houses and quaint cottages are made of the warm, honey-coloured Cotswold stone that is the trademark of this area. Village life is full of simple pleasures. We can ramble on any number of pre-mapped walks through the countryside, perhaps go for watch a fox hunt meeting up nearby, or attend movie night in the village hall where they show first-run movies at half the cinema price, and you can bring your own popcorn and wine. On Sundays, we might walk down to the village store and pick up a newspaper and some fresh pastries. And our landlord's father, who raises a few chickens in his retirement, knocks on our kitchen window every Saturday with a half dozen fresh eggs and sometimes a warm raspberry crumble. If we're looking for something to do on one of our 10-plus long holiday weekends during the year, thanks to the addition of British bank holidays, it is easy to plan a short break to the mountains of northern Wales, the lakes of the Lake District, the beaches and coastlines of Cornwall, or the numerous historic castles and cathedrals. So, whether you choose to be a Cheltenham townie or country squires like us, you can find that stress just doesn't live here. Ugh. So I don't know that I find anything useful in that other than just more disgust for the NSA than I had before. But
shared values, money, power, conquest.
I don't know if
Capitalism.
I don't know if conquest comes out of that.
Imperialism.
I honestly, I don't even see that. I just see that they like to pretend that they're living like old time British landed gentry, and that that they're actually not talking about the work the NSA does, and they're trying to say that there's no stress, which would never be true in the NSA, I can't imagine. So you know, compare that with the kind of like implications of burnout that we saw, the allusions to burnout that we saw in other documents. I think, you know, I would almost compare this to that, and the kind of suggestion that, you know, this is maybe a bad time in the Iraq war and in the Afghanistan occupation. And so they're kind of emphasizing, oh, but look, you can go over here and not be stressed. So no war over here. We haven't bombed this place yet. You know, that type of thing.
I think you're spot on. When you're reading that, all I could think is, who wrote this? Like, it's like a travel brochure.
It literally made me want to vomit, because it's like, oh yeah, no, we're killing people, but in the places we're not killing people, there are still country lanes and we can go walk down them.
Well,
you know,
they are killing people. They're just killing them from thousands of miles away.
No, yeah, no, that's what I'm exactly. That's why it's so disgusting specifically. Yeah, somebody said, Crockatoo says, another Lonely Planet entry. Exactly. That's exactly what that is. It's just a particularly hypocritical one, sort of. Be a spy, see the world, feel superior to others. Exactly right. Nice life at taxpayer expense, says Barbara. Exactly right, too. American exceptionalism, says Propaganda. I think it's American exceptionalism has now morphed into be like the British, which is hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Anyway. Yeah, the Fly mentions that it reminds them of the other file about the 6-star property in England that they bragged about. Very true as well. All right, Suzie, you want to go on to the next one?
Yeah, I'm already there.
Oh, okay, cool.
This one is already reminding me of remember the document where the congressional liaison or ex-congressional liaison office staff was like, don't let them change our classification rules. We have to change them ourselves. Well, this one is about new classification rules being in place. Interesting.
That's good to know. I barely remember that, but that's definitely good context to have looking at it. Okay, so it's obviously referencing the classification change in the title. And it says, I'm just glancing through the first, it looks like the first few segments are unclassified. And it says, the new NSA CSS classification manual is in effect, as announced last year. It makes several major changes in the long-standing classification practices, and they've highlighted a couple for the reader's attention. In the past, the NSA used the declassification marking X1, which meant the information was exempt from declassification for 10 years because the release of the material would reveal an intelligence source, method, activity, or cryptologic system or activity. Now, the NSA has chosen to mark documents with a defined declassified date, namely 25 years from the date of the classification manual. Note that you should use this date only, not the 25 years from the time any new document is created. There are good reasons why this is being handled this way. There's a Q&A at Redacted with further info. Furthermore, comment, classification, declassification guidelines are required for all systems, plans, programs, projects, operations, equipment, subcompartments, or special access programs. These classification guides are to be updated by November 2005. After that time, information that isn't covered by a classification guide will be considered unclassified. These new guides will replace Annex C. And that looks like the end of the document. So I don't know that I learned anything new there. I mean, obviously, all of the information is new, but I'm not seeing anything there that's like even noteworthy to me. I'm probably missing something though, Suzie. Do you see anything?
Yeah, can you still see my screen?
Yeah. I'm seeing that, yeah.
That is the keywords. That is the keywords that tells the real story behind this document.
So are you saying that the classification is still at the liberty of the NSA to manipulate so that it doesn't go under the nose of Congress, or just the date that they're manipulating the stuff that's marked?
What this looks like to me is that NSA has front-footed the issue. So what we know from the previous documents is that the 9/11 Commission, the Senate Intelligence Committee, were pressuring the NSA over their declassification rules. And the NSA internal memo said, we must come up with a solution ourselves because we do not want our overseers to impose solutions on us. We have to do something that suits us, not them. And now here we have NSA choosing voluntarily to change the rules in their declassification. But how have they changed the rules? They've bumped it from 10 to 25 years.
Exactly. Definitely.
And then they've said, and if we don't do this, then it's okay to unclassify them. So what they will have done is they will have gone to Congress and they will have sold this.
Yeah,
Gone to
definitely.
the Senate Intelligence Committee, and they would have said, we have heard your concerns and they're totally valid and we totally understand and respect your opinion, and therefore we're doing this that's highlighted in blue.
Yeah.
And then all of this, I can bet you, would have been one tiny sentence in what was given to the Senate Intelligence Committee. And then, because now this audience that they're talking to here was not their overseers, they're talking to their workforce. So in their workforce, they're saying, this is our solution that we have chosen to implement.
Absolutely.
10 years becomes 25 years. Oh, and by the way, this is what we're going to do if we haven't marked them that way. So in my opinion, that's the scam.
Definitely.
And in doing
That's a good synopsis of the scam for sure.
in doing this, they have, well, we don't know yet because we have to read the further documents, but it's likely that this is their attempt to then prevent the overseers imposing any declassification rules on them.
Definitely. Awesome. I think that's a very, very, very noteworthy one to write about for sure. That bumping it up from 10 to 25, my math is so terrible. I can't even explain. I can't even get the date right half of the time. So I didn't even notice that at all. That's fantastic. Good, really great point. When I say I'm bad at math, I mean I literally have dyscalculia, which is the numbers version of dyslexia. It's not good. I'm just glad I make the stream most of the time on time.
What does chat think of my synopsis?
I think it's great. What do you guys think? I haven't scrolled through much up from here. Let me see. Yeah, well, Grant Jarvis made a very good point on the whole British bit, which is that British imperialism wasn't hilarious, stiff upper lip, hip, all bullshit myths to hide multiple genocides. That's completely and utterly true, unfortunately.
This is an action-packed evening. Have a look at the next doc.
Awesome. Reading. So, what a difference a year makes. Reconstructing an Iraqi SIG servants. Wow, I see what you mean. It says how the Iraqi...
Reconstructing because they completely destroyed it first.
Definitely. Absolutely. No, that was a really huge failure, was that they destroyed all the infrastructure by choice, by, firing so many people that in the Iraqi system. And so they destroyed it, and then chaos reigned. Anyway, how the Iraqi SIG element was staffed from the ground up, and it's all secret and top secret. And it says it was just this time last year when NSA's redacted, and Sergeant redacted, and a GCHQ Integri Major redacted, which obviously are names, and so that's totally fine, they're redacted, arrived in Baghdad to reconstruct the Iraq SIG service. They took with them a list of potential candidates gleaned from years of targeting the Iraqi civil and military SIG units. Working closely with CIA, they arranged to meet potential candidates for what has become the Iraq SIG element, ISE, of the Iraq National Intelligence Service, INIS, Obviously, it was a difficult and daunting task to assess the recruits' suitability to serve in the new ISE, given that they were part of the old regime. To assist them in the vetting process, the CIA, I'm sure they assisted them very well. The CIA provided polygraphers and psychologists, as well as background checks, and before long, blank, and the team had their first new employees. I'm not sure what that redaction is. But anyway, the next few paragraphs are also top secret, and they say at the same time that the FAD, Foreign Affairs Directorate team, was recruiting new hires, they were creating training programs and collection strategies to teach the nascent ISE SIGINTers how we do SIGINT. The FAD team, the Foreign Affairs Directorate team, began with the basics and had limited technical resources due to security concerns. Unfortunately, the situation in Baghdad continued to deteriorate, but at the same time, this gave the ISE its first mission, to target communications used by the former regime elements and insurgents operating in Baghdad. The ISE went operational on 27th of March 2004 and began operations from its headquarters and various safe houses around town. The bad guys were using low-powered push-to-talk communications, in particular the General Mobile Radio Service and the Family Radio Service radios. The fact that these were low-powered radios gave the ISE its first unique capability. It began to use mobile units that could go into neighborhoods covertly, which was too difficult for coalition forces to do. Since March 2004, the ISE has grown to over 100 people and has proven its professionalism and trustworthiness many times over. I think that's an interesting word, trustworthiness, right there. We have continued to upgrade their equipment and skill level, which has led to a near real-time threat warning capability. These tippers were an integral part of election security efforts. The ISE and FAD personnel in Baghdad alerted Iraqi and MNF-I forces, or MNF-1 forces, or I think it's I. Anyway, to threats and attacks against polling places, armed insurgent movements, VBIEDs, en route for an attack, as well as providing unique situational awareness reports on activities throughout the city. In 1 year's time, the ISE has risen up out of the rubble of a fallen, brutal dictator and has become a bright, shining star, leading its country to a new and freely elected National Assembly. And I apologize for stumbling over some of these phrases, but I've got the lights kind of in my eyes to be able to see me, and it's a little bit hard to read sometimes. I'm going to have to change that next time. But yeah. Suzie, what do you think of that document?
I think it's one of the most shocking discoveries we've ever made in Decipher.
Very, very interesting. I thought the word trustworthiness was hilarious because I thought it referenced the fact that that they, obviously starting off, they don't trust the Iraqi forces. So to emphasize trustworthiness kind of, I think, reveals that in that reverse way. But tell me what you think is the most important finding, because obviously I'm not seeing it yet. Okay, well, let me see if I can find it. Guys in chat, what do you think is the most important thing from this document? Because obviously Suzie thinks it's one of the most incredible documents we've read in Decipher. And we've read quite a few intensely important findings here. So what do you think it is? What? Aye, Captain, that's a hilarious response. Why do I keep thinking these docs describe the development of ISIS? I sort of agree with you. I don't know that that they mean to describe that, but definitely, I mean, the actions that happened here that we're reading through, some of these decisions definitely did undeniably lead to that, for sure. The destabilization here, absolutely. Yeah, and the propaganda says the fact that it has connections to the Iraq war, absolutely. I don't know, because I'm not a tech mind, and Suzie is so gifted at tech and web development and all of that. So I don't know what she's seeing in this document that is the most one of the most amazing documents we've read in this series. But I'm really, really fascinated to hear what she has to say about that. That maybe it's, and Neon Butterfly Meadow says that the capability is way more advanced. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. And then it looks like a few people are responding to earlier stuff we were talking about. And RM Marburton 8, sorry, I'm not pronouncing that correctly, they asked, what did I miss? And you missed apparently one of the most important documents that we've ever read, which is probably completely true. There have been, and actually when I think back to the earlier documents that I think of, when I think of what were the most important findings we've ever made on Decipher You, most of them, I'm ashamed to say, I just kind of was like, oh yeah, I read that and I didn't really see anything. And then Suzie's like, this is amazing. Look at all this. And then it's completely obvious what it is. And I'm just like, wow, I didn't even see that at all. It's incredible. So I learned so much in all of these episodes of Decipher You. So much. Yeah, and then Crockett says, was the election referred to the one that elected a government that asked the USA to leave? I don't know. Actually, that's a really good question. But I do know that it seems like they're very, very proud of the success of the election in Iraq in their minds. I think that's kind of like the one event that they try to hold up as a symbol of a fake, false idea that they had stitched this country together again, and that they had, successfully had an episode of nation building, and that it was democracy now, and look, we brought this democracy to Iraq, and all of that. And obviously we know that it did not turn out well, that was that they had completely shattered the infrastructure of the country, and that all of the chaos that resulted also did lead to, in part, to the rise of ISIS, for sure. But
okay, so the reason I think that is the most important document, or one of the most important document.
Very interested about this. I'm very interested to hear this.
Yeah, is because I'll start with the Cullen Reddy report in New Zealand. The Cullen Reddy report, it was the second investigation into the New Zealand spy services.
Oh, okay. I have no idea.
It said in it that the national security of any country can never be synonymous with the national security priorities or interests of another country.
Wow.
And it was talking in relation to New Zealand to the United States, because it had often been argued that, well, the Americans are our partners, we're just helping the Americans, we're blah, 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 blah. And so they openly stated the national security interests of New Zealand can never be synonymous with the national security interests of the United States, whether or not they're allies, whether or not they're partners. What we've just seen in that document is something that I feel stupid for not working out myself already was happening. But what it means is that America, you think about how the media portrayed the relationship between America and the Iraqis. We were told Iraq was like in a sovereign state. The Iraqi government was being rebuilt with the help of the UN for the benefit of the Iraqi people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what we've just seen in that document is that the Iraqi spies, were hand-selected by the Americans, were trained by the Americans, were equipped by the Americans, were sent on missions by the Americans, and were reporting back to the Americans. What was it? Not truthfully, reliably, something? What's the word?
They were being very trustworthy, which I thought was extremely interesting phrasing specifically.
So what that means is that the Iraqi spy services were operating as an extension of the United States spy services.
Oh yeah, that is very interesting.
Their operations are being completely overseen by their establishment, and operations are at the behest of the Americans. Now, what happens when the Americans say, mission accomplished, we're handing over to the Iraqi government, everything's wonderful in Iraq? They're leaving behind a proxy. Yeah, double agents, propaganda just said. Basically, every single person who worked in the Iraqi spy service was inherently a double agent by default.
Well, you know what's so incredible to me about what you're saying too is that I like the reason, like when I'm hearing you say this, and it is so incredible. The reason that I didn't even pick up on that was that I took it for granted. Like I just thought that was a known, assumed state of affairs, because we were the ones, or we being the US and the coalition, were the ones that were, rebuilding, reconstructing the nation. So I just assumed that we had power over that. But maybe it just wasn't publicly, known. Is that right? Am I hearing that? Am I understanding that correctly, or not?
All of the media and the public narrative and public conversation was that the Iraqi government had sovereignty.
Okay. See, that's where I didn't even think that they did.
US was just there to help them, just there to assist them. The US wasn't nation building. The US blah, blah, blah. I mean, we know from the NSA documents that internally they're saying, yes, we are nation building. But that's not what they're telling the media. It's not what the diplomats were saying. It's not what the president was saying. It's not what the world was being told.
Fascinating. That's incredible.
The implication of them having decommissioned the Iraqi spy services, re-established new Iraqi spy services, handpicked all of the personnel, trained, had them vetted by American psychologists, trained them, sent them on operations, resourced them, and had them reporting back to the Americans makes it impossible for Iraq to have had sovereignty. It makes it impossible for the reasons that I just stated about the Cullen Reddy report. It is not possible for the United States national security interests and Iraq's national security interests to be synonymous.
Absolutely.
But they've made them synonymous.
So this is like seeing hidden colonialism being brought to the light and seeing it in action in their real time as that was being enacted, sort of.
And they're basically using them as like cannon fodder.
Yeah, that's exactly what that was.
They're sending them out into suburbs that the US can't show their face in, with a car full of spy gear, hoping they don't get caught, while there's sectarian death squads and shit running around. Yeah,
well, and their super duper covert methods were radios. Like, were they describing walkie-talkies there? Is that all that was?
Let's have a look at the document. I really genuinely believe that this is one of the most significant documents we've seen.
No, I understand. I was never doubting you one at all. It's just that I just had no idea that this wasn't known that we did this. So that's totally mind-boggling to me. But so yes, this is extremely incredible documentation of exactly what you're saying.
If the Iraqi government, the Iraqi coalition, the governing authority, can't rely on the independence of their own spy services, it's arguable as to whether they were even a state at all. No, it says the bad guys were using low-powered push-to-talk communications. And that's why they needed mobile units, because they're short range, they're really short range devices. To me, this document is it's incontrovertible proof that the Iraqis had no sovereignty.
I would completely agree with that. Absolutely. And I think that's a real shame. And it's a shame that we took that away from them,
I'm just going to tweet about it now.
Absolutely. How are you all doing in chat? Yeah, so a number of people are pointing out that 9/11 was indeed an excuse to invade Iraq. I mean, that's something that we've known Definitely. And I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I think a couple of the VIPS members quit over the falsification of the narrative that was used to invade Iraq, like the falsification of the WDMD narrative. It's really heavy stuff, I think, because I mean, we're looking here not only at the fact that we've taken away sovereignty from Iraq, but just the destruction that happened, you know, and like you mentioned, like you guys in chat mentioned before about the fact that ISIS resulted from this. So it's not just, you know, as horrific and as much of a war crime as all of the civilian deaths in Iraq were in the early years. It also has produced that ongoing terror in that area that, you know, that the Consortium News reported that we have armed ISIS as well. So, I mean, we are continually terrorizing that area, and it's horrific. And, you know, and then to compare that carnage and devastation with the talk about the Cheltenham, you know, area of England and the country lanes, that literally makes me want to vomit. So, you know, it's really, really, to me, that's really heavy material. So, you know, I think if Caitlin Johnstone was here, she would be having a fit, and for good reason. So, you know, it's, yeah, Kathy B, it is horrific. And it really, the contrast of seeing that country lane English, oh, my father-in-law brings us eggs on a Sunday and raspberry tarts, like to see that. And then to read about this, where, as Suzie said, they're using these Iraqis as cannon fodder after destroying their infrastructure and taking over their government. It's so awful. And I'm so glad that we do have, you know, these documents that Edward Snowden gave us. I'm so glad that WikiLeaks publishes the documents that it has published on this issue, and that we have the ability to learn about this, you know, these top secret documents that we would never have been able to see if it wasn't for Edward Snowden. So I'm really, really grateful that we're able to see this heavy stuff, because it really does show the hypocrisy. And as Suzie was saying, that lie about Iraqi sovereignty is such a lie. We would never know that if it wasn't for Snowden. So that has nothing to do with the mass surveillance of Americans. But anyway, Suzie, are you back? I thought I saw you drop a tweet into chat, so I thought I'd ask.
Yeah, I just went and tweeted about it, and I just put the link to the tweet into chat.
Awesome. Yeah, I saw that, so I assumed you were here.
I think someone just said they're born in 1990 and this shit is all they've ever known.
Yeah, I was born in 89, so I'm in a similar boat.
I remember every single lie, because at the time that they were telling these lies, I quite literally didn't know better. I knew that wars sucked and shouldn't happen. I was against all of the wars and invasions I've ever heard of or known about in my lifetime, because and growing up in the era that I did in New Zealand, we're all anti-war, we're all anti-nuke. But at that time, I didn't understand how corrupt the media.
Yes, I was in the same place. Yeah.
And so now I'm just remembering the 4,000 times that my subconscious heard some fucking CNN anchor saying, we're just there to hand over power to the governing council. It is the, you know, up to the Iraqis now to take control of their own country, blah, blah. How the hell are they going to do that if their spy service is fucking reported or hired by the Americans and reporting to the Americans?
Exactly. And I remember as well, like I was in the sort of the same category where in 2002, 2003, 2004, I was a very young teenager, and I heard the lies on CNN and Fox News and even MSNBC and all of those. And I wasn't somebody who was reading the New York Times. I was, you know, very far away from the US, but and I wasn't reading the warmongering lies of the New York Times and that type of thing, or Washington Post or whatever. But I was definitely hearing the cable news, and I was believing what they said. Like I swallowed the WDMD weapons of mass destruction narrative, and and I know other people who swallowed that narrative, and who you know, myself included, that is a factor and part of the reason that we have been driven to provide alternative media and independent media, because of the lies that were spread and that we believed at that time that were so wrong. And it is the blood of Iraqi people, is on those media outlets that spread those lies and manufactured consent of people. And so, there is a real drive among people, especially of my age group, I think, to provide independent media to avoid that type of thing. And you see Caitlin Johnstone doing that all the time, saying this cannot happen again, and we should do everything in our power to avoid that. And I think the internet age wasn't fully born until just after we had been just after the public has swallowed the Iraq war lies. And so I think that part of the reason we haven't seen a complete total repeat of Iraq in Syria yet, I mean, we have partially, but not a total, a complete total invasion directly and officially, is because of that, because the internet has spread this awareness that just couldn't have happened before, and because of the work of WikiLeaks, and because of the rise of niche independent media. So I'm ranting, I'm sorry, Suzie, but it really does, it does bring back those memories of the propaganda for sure, and the widespread swallowing of the propaganda. And I think the only similar, and I think Vips is really correct, they were the ones that were fighting against the weapons of mass destruction narrative when it happened the first time. And they have also come out against this Russiagate narrative. And I see that Russiagate narrative is very similar. And the real awesome difference now is that people are fighting back against the Russiagate narrative, and they are fighting back, and they're not believing it in the same kind of universal mass deception way that they did in 2002, 2003. It's just not as successful. And yes, lots of people have swallowed it, but really, despite the huge energy put into Russiagate by all of the mainstream media, the existence and the flourishing of the internet has prevented it being as successful as it would have been. So I think that's really awesome. And I think that's a real serious success of independent media in general. But
this is the tweet that I've just seen. Incontrovertible proof. Iraqi governing council was not in control of its own spy agency, which was hired, trained, resourced, and sent on missions by the US. This document is proof that, contrary to media narratives, Iraq had zero sovereignty.
Wow. I'm just like staring because it's just amazing.
It's hard to describe how I feel.
Yeah. I don't know if you were gone or just muted, but I was telling chat about how heavy this all is. It really...
Yeah, it is. I know we've had so many of these moments in the series, where you could literally feel your worldview alter.
Yeah. It feels like your gut's taken out of you.
I feel halfway between like really, really, really sad.
Yeah.
And halfway like I should have known.
Exactly. That's how I feel too.
Actually, it's not just I should have known. It's when you do know something deep down, but you don't consciously confront the fact that you know it. And then the evidence stares you in the face and you're forced to confront it. That's the feeling.
I feel like I have a bowling ball in my stomach. Like, and not like from too much food or anything, but I mean like of heaviness and, like you said, sadness and I feel like I would feel if I was shown evidence of a murder and a crime scene. That's how I feel looking at this, because this is part of the evidence of all of that murder that took place at that time at the hands of both the United States and the coalition in general. So and to see them also try to defend it as somehow all okay because they had an election, that also is really tough to swallow. It's just such a I don't know, it's just bullshit. But yeah, Barbara, I feel the heavy weight of layers of reality. No sedatives for this. Totally, absolutely. And like I ranted about earlier, thank God for it. You don't have to believe in God. Say thank God for people like Snowden who give us this reality We would never see it otherwise. We would never have the ability to see this if it wasn't for people that blew the whistle and did this.
Thank you for pointing that out, because I was thinking it just before, but I actually hadn't said it yet. And that's that when every time we have a discovery like this, I partially feel, as impotent as it is, total rage at everybody who has had the nerve to smear Snowden and say that he's not a whistleblower, that he didn't release anything of importance, that we knew it all before, that he's a CIA limited.
Exactly.
Blah, 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 blah. Come on now. Do you really think the US government wanted us reading documents like this?
Yeah, and we have almost 70 people with us, and I'm so fucking glad, because this is a really big evening of Decipher discoveries. We have 68, 69.
Yeah, it's huge. Absolutely huge.
And this is a really important thing. So I'm glad that there are so many people with us witnessing this, because it's important.
I'd really appreciate it if you guys, because I'm, as you can tell, a bit under the weather at the moment, if you would tweet out the live stream link, and if you would stick the live stream links and like just reply to my tweets that I'm sending and put the live stream link in, because I keep like using all my characters and not being able to fit in. But
Well,
people should know that we are live right now, and making discoveries like this is so important.
Definitely. And I will try to retweet you.
Why don't you tweet about the stream and tag me, and I'll go and retweet you.
And I'm going to retweet my own tweets of the stream.
And I'm going to make a note of this document, because it definitely deserves a write-up.
Definitely. Absolutely. HA, if you're watching with us, I don't think HA is watching, but if you are, please tweet this. It's important. I know that people were saying in chat that earlier that he tweeted the stream link, so that was awesome of him.
You know, for the first time ever, I'm not making notes on the document. I'm just literally putting the link to my tweet, because I think the tweet says it all.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, we've done this for months, and there have only been a couple of times that I felt gut punched like this. Yeah, very, very, very significant finding. I didn't see it at first, just because it was something that I took for granted at this point. But now that I'm looking back and I'm remembering how I swallowed these narratives, absolutely huge, huge stuff.
Procato just said, this is a tribute to Julian Assange and the sea change that he brought about for the world.
Definitely. Absolutely. At a time when Julian can't even talk to his loved ones or see them or, answer a phone call. Definitely.
He'd be really proud that we're here doing this.
I hope so.
He would be really, 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 really proud that we're here doing this.
If we keep talking about that, I'm going to cry. It's just so heavy and sad that the people that are bringing us this information are the ones that are punished, and not these criminals that are killing people. Just makes me so sickened that that's the way the world is. It's sick. So unfair. And I mean, everybody knows the world is unfair, but this is just so thoroughly sick. Propaganda asks, what hashtag do we use for the stream? And that would be hashtag Decipher you. That's the one that we go with for this series. And thank you. And I see we've hit 73 people with us now. Thank you. You came in at a really fantastic, amazing time. Not a fun time, but a really important one. So we appreciate every single one of you with us. And I see propaganda. You've been answered a few times about the Decipher hashtag. I'm just scrolling up through chat for a minute to see all of your responses to this finding, which is so important. Myanmar independent. Oh yeah, okay. Myanmar independent. Okay. They say we didn't have the internet then, only AFN, and that's totally Propaganda. Yeah, all of the cable news is propaganda. I don't care if it's left, right, in the middle, whatever. It's all propaganda. And, you know, like when even channels like MSNBC, which are supposed to be left wing, won't talk to VIPs or won't talk to anti-war people and peddle pro-war narratives, that then, you know, it's just all crap. But yeah, the internet didn't exist then, and we didn't know that at that point. So, you know, thanks to the internet can be a very dark, horrific place, and it can do some horrible things. But in that respect, it has really, really helped humanity. And definitely Assange, definitely Snowden, these people that have used the internet to bring us information that hopefully will stop the next huge war that kills so many people unfairly and then gets called like an effort for freedom, or, you know, building democracy or whatever. So definitely. And I know myself personally, without the internet, and I mean, I had the internet, but it was not like at that stage in 2002, 2003, I was just getting my first email account. Like, I didn't even know how the internet worked properly because I was, I guess, slow in the uptake, but I was also very, very young. But besides the point is that the internet wasn't used by the vast majority of people in the way that it is now, the way that it is like ubiquitous now. And people get their information from Facebook, or they get their news from Jimmy Dore or Lee Camp on Redacted Tonight. They aren't getting it from CNN anymore. And that is all because of the internet. Hopefully that'll stay that way for the time to come. I know that the powers that the powers that be, the military industrial complex interests want us to not have that anymore, and they're trying to co-opt all the sources of information that they can, but they're not succeeding yet. So let me see. Mass Twitter spam. Yes, that would be very appreciated. II Captain. Very, very good point from II Captain, who says Iraq and Libya tried to go off the petrodollar. They died. That's true. So true. And WikiLeaks recently highlighted that. Assange pointed out specifically in the WikiLeaks documents that were published the points about the fact that Libya had a lot of gold and silver, and they were trying to make a new currency that would also that would be a Pan-African currency that would be in competition with France as well, I believe, if I'm remembering that correctly, which made them a huge, huge target. Propaganda says we all do live in America, even the countries that hate America and embrace the culture. That's a point I heard a lot when I lived in Australia, actually. And as an American in Australia, or I'm half and half, so I'm either Australian in America or I'm American in Australia. It's never, you know, I'm never in the country of origin ever. But when I was there, a lot of people really disliked Americans, including me, because it was, you know, this whole reaction against the cultural imperialism of America. And I can totally see where they're coming from now. It's just, when it hits you personally, it's a little bit kind of difficult to go along with. But I totally get that. And I understand Hollywood taking over a lot of different cultures. Suzie, I can hear you. What's up?
I am having a rare shaken moment, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because all this talk about countries and stuff too, like, it's just making me feel like I had to love my country enough to leave it, because it wasn't enough to love my country. I had to love like the world, and if I wanted to fight for the world, I had to leave, and it's fucked up. I mean, yeah. That's very much Snowden's situation. He had to love his country enough to leave it.
That is exactly why it's so, and that was hitting me earlier when I almost cried, because it's that sense that these people who do the right thing are punished, whether it's through leaving the country or having to go to an embassy or being killed or whatever it is. You truth tellers and activists and all of that are the ones that get hurt, and that is so deeply unfair. There's just no reconciling that. So but yeah, being away from your country of origin is very, very difficult, and I wouldn't actually wish it on anybody, honestly. So I'm RSFO, I'm a globalist. I'm not a globalist. In the sense that I think that NAFTA and a lot of different trade issues have really hurt a lot of middle class people that otherwise would have been better off. And it's created a demand for slave labor wages and et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know. It's a whole other topic of discussion, but yeah, I think and saying like my globalism is at odds with their globalism. That's I think that's you can have a big long discussion about the definition of globalism, but very, very heavy stuff, Crockett.
I'm going to tell you guys something I haven't told anyone else, but which the NSA knows. This is something that someone told me. I'm not going to tell you who told me. One day, we'll see what happens, but one day I might tell you who told me. They told me history is fake news all the way down.
I completely agree with that. Absolutely. Just seeing it in action now, like the way that we're seeing the writing of history being written by the fake news artists. Absolutely.
History is fake news all the way down.
Yep. Completely agree. Completely 100% agree with that. And it's only organizations like WikiLeaks and people like Snowden who have done anything to change that. And it's like even the millions of documents that WikiLeaks has published is one drop in the water of all of the fake news that has been written down as history, because we've gotten a few glimpses into what is happening in the last maybe 10, 20 years. And some of their documents do go back farther than that, like Cablegate and a lot of that, it goes way back. But the amount of history that has been written completely by fake news without any question is definitely huge. So maybe with the advent of the internet, maybe a little bit is being done to change that in the future, maybe, hopefully. I hope.
Let's move on. If that's what we can find in the first 3 documents, what else is there?
Yeah, it's definitely been a crazy segment so far. Yeah, Hope Kesselring, WikiLeaks is real history. Now with that, I agree with you completely. And Kathy B, I was a history teacher. Oh,
and I'm going to add that to my tweet, because I just tweeted history is fake news all the way down.
Yeah, WikiLeaks, that needs to be...
Hope I'm going to steal your line.
Hope you need to send that to WikiLeaks and have them put it on a shirt so we can all buy it, or like a coffee mug or whatever that they sell, because I think that's a fantastic forward statement for sure. I would definitely buy a WikiLeaks shirt with that on it.
I think it's the first time in human civilization that the general public has had access to the truth.
Yeah, I think
history.
I think you could write an entire article on that line. WikiLeaks is the real history. Like, you could write an entire essay on that, I think.
I think many people have, but probably not in the immediate context of having just read the real history.
Yeah, true.
Okay, let's continue.
Okay, maybe this will be less heavy. I'd almost be relieved if it was, but it says announcing the 2005 Pacific SIGINT Development Conference, GCH, and it's from Redacted, and GCHQ Integrity, SIGINT Development Strategy, and Governance. So it says planning is currently underway for the second Pacific SIGINT Development Conference to be hosted by Cunha Regional Security Operations Center, KRSOC, from 19th to 21st of April.
That's Hawaii, that's Snowden Station.
Huh? What? That's why what?
Cunha is Hawaii.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I misheard you. Awesome. Interesting to note that. So the next few paragraphs are classified, it looks like. And it says the conference will focus on SIGINT development in the Pacific and will explore how mission alignment will affect that community, as well as examine orchestration and collaboration across the Pacific SIGDev community and between the Pacific Theater and NSAW and second party second-party partners. At last year's conference, there was a healthy mix of extended enterprise representatives, I hate that phrase, and NSAW contingent, as well as the second-party representatives from DSD and GCSB. This year, we are hoping to have representation from all extended enterprise elements in the region, all second-party partners, and increased participation from across SID and beyond. The conference itself will consist of a series of briefings at top secret, and are they saying top secret? Okay, to USA.
Top secret and secret classification levels
Sorry,
related to the Five
I
Eyes.
literally, for a second, I paused because I thought that they were saying that the rest of this paragraph was secret for a second. Anyway, but so to USA, Oz, Canberra, blah, 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 and or at or below S2 product lines and second-party partners as mission owners, S3 participants as capability solution providers, and extended enterprise elements, highlighting the SIGDEV successes over the past 12 months, as well as outlining their capabilities and gaps. The briefings are not only intended to facilitate the exchange of information, but to encourage discussions that will result in improvements to the SIGDEV mission in the coming years. So if you feel that your organization would benefit from participation, please contact one of the following, blah, 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 blah. So what are you seeing from that, Suzie?
I'm seeing only that it's taking place less than 2 months from the time that this was posted.
Interesting.
That within this batch, we will get the update where they say, we have just had the 2005 Pacific SIG Development Conference, and here's what was discussed, because that's what they've done in every previous year very helpfully for us.
Very good points.
And here, what do we have? We have the umpteenth example of a document about the CIA, despite the fact that the number one thing that Edward Snowden haters claim or disclaim him for is they say he never leaked anything on the CIA, except his documents are full of stuff about the CIA.
Exactly. No, it's all fake news. It really is. Like, it, even as an independent journalist, and I pretty much spend all of my time doing this stuff, I sometimes fall for fake news without realizing it. And I mean fake news in the CNN sense of the term, meaning like, you know, maybe just like thinking about, for example, if you fell for the fact that fake news said that the current president of Ecuador, you know, didn't like Assange or something, and it's a lot more complicated than that. He didn't like the situation that Assange was in, which we all don't like the situation that Assange is in. So it's just so it is so deeply manipulative the way they craft these narratives. So sorry to rant, Suzie.
It's fine. I'm just sitting here retweeting those tweets about Decipher U findings, because if me telling Ryan Gallagher off gets 100-something retweets and Decipher U learning the true history of the world gets 30 retweets, I'm going to be pissed.
Yeah, really.
Okay, here we go. Next talk.
Awesome. Do you want to read this one, or would you rather me read it? I don't mind.
You go for it. I've got a thumping headache.
Okay, sorry. I will get right to it. It says CIA NSA Analysis Day from Carolyn S. Crooks, Customer Account Management, IC, and Policy Pillar. It looks like it's mostly unclassified from what I'm looking at right now. It says the SIGINT Directorate's Customer Gateway, working with Analysis and Production and CIA's Directorate of Intelligence, is hosting CIA and NSA Analysis Day on 16th of March 2005 here at NSA. This event is the latest in a series of customer days being offered as part of the SIGINT Directorate's Customer Engagement Strategy. This is really interesting in terms of the focus that we've done, you know, in the last few months on NSA customers. The primary focus is on intelligence analysis, both at NSA and CIA, and the need for analytic collaboration between analysts at both agencies. The goal is to achieve greater understanding and enhanced networking, teamwork, and collaboration among SID and DI analysts, which will ultimately strengthen intelligence production for our nation's security. The theme for the day is CIA NSA, overcoming intelligence challenges through analytic collaboration. The event will include a morning general session featuring key leaders from both agencies, as well as afternoon breakout sessions on a wide range of specific topics. Distinguished guests include John Cringen, Deputy Director of Intelligence, Carmen Medina, Associate Deputy Director for Intelligence, and Peter Clement, Associate Deputy Director for Intelligence and Strategic Programs. That is a breathful. As the focus is on the analysis, the NSA SIG Directorate's analysis and production elements have played a key role in shaping this agenda, and many leaders and analysts from A&P will be speaking during the morning and afternoon sessions. This is a major undertaking for SID and is itself a great example of collaboration with the Directorate of Intelligence, CIA, which has contributed heavily to the planning of this event. We expect a great payoff to our national missions by bringing together the analytic workforces of SID and CIA-DI in this unique forum. Information, including an agenda and registration instructions, is available from the web at link. The event is open to all Blue Badge and Military Gold Badge holders. Registration is on a first-come, first-served basis, blah, blah. POCs for the event are redacted or Carolyn Crooks. Thank you in advance for your support and participation, etc. So, thoughts, Suzie, what are they?
Pretty much the same thing, which is that the same thing as previously, which is that here we have like NSA and CIA directly collaborating in areas which we are told that they're in fierce competition in, and that they compete with each other. And, you know, this is Snowden is a CIA plot against the NSA and blah, 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 blah. And meanwhile, they are totally, completely in each other's pockets. They have their own staff at each other's agencies. There's CIA staff at NSA, there's NSA staff at CIA, as we know from previous documents. These documents are packed full of information about CIA operations, functions, etc. And the documents themselves disprove the haters who say that Snowden must be CIA. But no one reads the documents. They just read like whatever random Reddit comment or whatever 4chan comment tells them, or QAnon telling them Snowden's a bad guy. When in reality, the evidence is sitting right here to the contrary.
Very true. All very, very true. I'm going to check chat really fast and see what you guys are saying. Just 1 second. That's a big mistake, says Barbara. Kathy B, I hope your dog calms down soon. Critical thinking is needed now more than ever. Absolutely. Well, I don't know about more than ever. I think critical thinking would have been really useful during the Iraq War period, and a lot of people did protest that and use their critical thinking skills, but not enough. And yeah, I think critical thinking is always absolutely necessary. So
someone on Twitter has quoted my tweet about the $1.2 billion Trailblazer contract and said, but we don't have money for healthcare.
Very hypocritical. And
we can afford like epically expensive spy programs that go hundreds of millions over budget and years over time, but we cannot afford healthcare or education.
Yeah, and one thing that Kathy B pointed out is schools want kids to memorize data, which is the lowest form of learning. And I completely and 100% agree.
Yeah, regurgitation.
And not only that, but obviously the fake news history is taught as well as the regurgitation method. And it's just so depressing to even contemplate becoming a teacher, because you can't speak about real issues, and you can't, you know, they only allow you to enforce the fake news narrative and trusting the wrong sources. And it's such a closed system, and they pay teachers so little on purpose because they don't want the profession to be respected like it should be. And there are educators, especially out west, where the price of housing is very, very high, that are actually living out of cars, even as college professors, and they're homeless because it's just, and it, you know, they say that you have to look at teaching as a vocation, and I just don't see how it's even possible to try to do that, because of the degree to which you would be silenced if you tried to actually help kids develop critical thinking skills, which is exactly what a good teacher should be doing. Anyway.
And the next document is all about all the other countries who are complicit in providing resources for the American global network spy machine. Some of them anyway.
So it says crosshair foreign partners filling HFDF gaps for the US. And the subtitle is A Multinational Effort for High Frequency Direction Finding. And it says, what do these third-party partners have in common? I'm interested in the fact, oh, okay, they list the third parties. That's why it's top secret. And it says Austria, Denmark, Ethiopia, Hungary, Israel, India, Italy, Japan, Jordan, Korea, Netherlands, Norway, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Sweden, and Taiwan. And the answer is that they all participate in the Crosshair program, enabling the US to maintain an HFDF capability worldwide. And then it says that Crosshair implementation occurred on the 1st of October 1993 and is the product name and subsequent name of the US HDF network for the consolidation of all US service cryptologic element HFDF resources into a single DF framework managed by the NSA. Prior to Crosshair, each of the military SCEs had its own DF resources. In fact, some large field sites, e.g. Misawa and Hansa, all three SCEs operated DF systems within their respective nets, and numerous field sites had two SCEs conducting HFDF operations. However, there was no interoperability, and each SCE was funded for DF separately, which was a waste of dollars and resources. In the early 1990s, the Terrestrial Overt Transition Study looked at big fixed field sites throughout the world and decided it was necessary to close some of them to eliminate duplication and save money. About 25 field sites were closed, which meant that HFDF mission lost a great many opportunities to get lines of bearings, which needed to hone in on targets. Instead of, say, 10 to 12 sites providing lines of bearings, maybe one or two existed. The office that is now SID, SID's HF mission management organization needed to find other resources to do the same job. In fact, all of our second-party partners were full-time members in Crosshair. Canada had 4 sites, Great Britain had 6, Australia and New Zealand each had 1. However, there were still uncovered areas all over the world, and it occurred to S33113 that third parties might be able or willing to help out. They came to what is now FAD, talked with various country desk officers to see which countries might be willing to get involved, and thus began the expansion of the Crosshair program. The network has grown to the point where there are even trilateral agreements whereby some of our third-party partners exchange HFDF information with each other. The expanded Crosshair has been so successful, the chief of HF mission management said, without third parties, we would probably wouldn't have a worldwide US HFDF network.
And I can't think of a better advertisement for why the third party should all leave the US global network.
I completely agree. What does chat think of this document?
I'm not enough of an engineer to decipher all of the lingo in this document.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of tongue twister acronyms.
We really need an engineer in order to understand the full implications of what this says. But this last line means that the partners are equally culpable.
What, Q is here? What? Are you guys joking? Please tell me you're joking. Q is a psyop. Sorry to interrupt, Susie. I just was looking through chat to see what they thought of this document. I'll probably piss off like a third of our audience saying that, but Angel Tibbs says, whoa, Caitlin is smacking down the McCabe fundraiser and sticking up for Julian. Hell yes, she is. I thought that her tweet on that was so awesome. I quoted it. I literally screen shared it and talked about it in chat. I mean, in the stream. So Caitlin is awesome. So I'm curious, Fly, why did you, I mean, I'm not, it's not that I care much, but why did you say that Q is here? I mean, Q could be anybody, but I mean, Did they say something that was from stream or what?
They were just joking, Elizabeth. Someone said their name is Quinn Anon, like Q for
Oh,
short.
sorry. Yeah, I just didn't scroll up in chat high enough. Thanks for the explanation. Also, text is very hard to read for sarcasm sometimes. But yeah, you all know my opinion on Q now, that Q is a psyop and or a really bad LARP, either way. And I think that the reason that Q exists is to help people keep up false hope in the administration, so they don't, so in the Trump administration, so that they literally just don't take pitchforks and, you know, torches to the White House, because I think that's about what people are ready to do if things get any worse in this country. So. Because as we all know, things are not just bad in places like Flint, Michigan, or, you know, well-known poverty-stricken areas like Los Angeles. They're bad across the board. And I think that if something like QAnon wasn't out there spreading misinformation and false hope in the Trump administration and making him out to be some sort of superhero, I think that there would be massive civil unrest. And I think that's exactly what Q is trying to is set up to combat, is people actually realizing that things are totally fucked and taking action against that, you know. And I think that Trump was a lot of people's last hope that things would change. And I think, who was it that was it? Suzie, did you say that? Who was it? Somebody said that, yeah, it was you. It was said that Julian was an agent of change, and that it wasn't his fault that Trump was that change. Because I think that Trump, although you know, I disagree with every single one of his policies completely, but I think a lot of people saw him as somebody who would come in and quote unquote drain the swamp. And obviously he hasn't done anything substantive against any of that. He's just continued it. He made Obama's drone strikes worse. He's done a whole lot of stuff that is even worse. So his whole MAGA thing and drain the swamp thing is like hope and change 2.0. It's the same crap. And so Q is there to keep people on that and keep people thinking that he's going to do something and he's a game changer and, oh, he's going to change things, when he's not. And so they're kicking the bucket down the road of people realizing that and, you know, acting on it. Because I think they knew when people refused to vote for Hillary in such huge numbers, they knew that people were really seriously voting for like institutional change, and that's the last thing that they want. So this Q is their way of delaying that. And so, yeah, sorry to rant at you guys. I just think that it's important to say why, because I know a lot of people, in their enthusiasm for independent news, they can fall under the spell of stuff like Q and forget how important it is to be educating yourself, using your critical thinking skills, and checking out the sources of things. Like, I don't want you to just blindly accept what I have to say or Disobedient Media writes. I want you guys to be checking the sources that we link. And we always, unless it's an opinion piece where I just do a rant, like today's publication where I just ranted my opinion about why Julian Assange needs to be, you know, free and protected by Ecuador. But when it's a reporting piece, I want people to check out those links, because we always cite our statements with evidence. And if those, you know, and if we make an incorrect statement, I want people to tell me it's incorrect and let me know, because I want to report accurately. And so often with stuff like Q, do people actually fact check him? I don't know. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But the point is that that when people are willing to stand for anybody that promises them change, they can easily be misled. That's what I'm trying to say. So,
and that's exactly what happened with Obama and with Trump, even though they're opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah,
they're supposed to be on opposite ends of the spectrum, but end up being the same kettle of fish.
And not only did they both promise change and then lie and not produce change, but they both even have the same policies on Saudi Arabia and Venezuela. Like Saudi Arabia, they both gave $100 billion arms deals. Venezuela, they both sanctioned. It's just like the same person. It's like those pictures of Obama being a mask that Bush is taking off. It's the same plutocracy ruling us no matter who is in power. So another depressing statement for this evening.
I think tonight has been amazing. I just noticed that we promised each other we were going to do a 1 hour stream today, and we're over 2 hours already. But
Yeah,
it's hard not to be when you're uncovering the kinds of stuff that we've been uncovering. I'm extremely proud of tonight. I really physically was not up to doing it, but I'm glad that I did. I hate missing Decipher streams. It really bugs me. And I'm really pleased. And if anything, I'm thinking like maybe we should be increasing the frequency of the streams. But
yeah, no, well, I think this was a great stream. I'm so glad we chose to do this, even though, you know, I know that you need some rest, definitely. And I'm
sorry,
really,
to give you guys some context, like in my usual form, I just like worked all day and night and had other things, work-related things happening. But I really, really didn't want to miss it tonight. So I appreciate you all letting me be on audio only and not having to stress myself out about doing makeup and everything.
yeah, no, it's totally fine. And I know like Suzie really wants to be there for you all 100%. So she was literally worrying, you know, expressing to me before stream that she wanted to be on video for you all. And that's because she, you know, loves you guys. So thank you for doing this, even though you didn't feel so great. And I think that we made really important findings and they need to be written up, and we'll be here next time. So yeah.
Oh, that's a
propaganda. Propaganda just said that you're a babe, makeup or not. I completely agree. And
that's very kind. I don't agree at all, but that's very, very kind. It's all about the work anyway, you know, and if you really want to see me on stream, I think you're going to have plenty of opportunity to in the near term. I'll leave it at that. I think, I mean, I said on Twitter a couple of days ago, we got something up our sleeves. So keep an eye out because we really do.
absolutely. And thank you everyone that's been watching and contributing and collaborating with us, because this has been a crazy awesome stream. And chat has been amazing as always. I'm so glad to see so many people that I recognize and new people as well. So thank you everyone. Really, truly, seriously, you're awesome. And I guess with that, we'll call it a night. And we'll be back on Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time in the US. And Suzie, what time is it in your time zone when we go? Like 3 in the morning?
It's currently 5:32 a.m.
Yeah.
And I've really got to get some sleep.
Definitely.
Okay, thank you all so much. And we will see you soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
See you later.